and defining fundraising. So where was BVMI's fundraising 7 years ago when you joined? What parts of it did you say, you know what, we got to keep this? What parts of it did you say, we got to get rid of this? And, you know, you could take 5 minutes and tell us about your 7-year journey of, you know, how you got from there to here and what you've done differently along the way.
Okay. So when I arrived at BVMI, the organization was only 4 years old. So it was a very young organization. Our budget was about $900,000. And when I stepped into the job, people were going crazy about selling raffle tickets, about selling tickets to an event called Game On, which was like bridge and mahjong and all these other games. And it was a $75 ticket. And everybody's like, oh, we've got to sell these tickets. We were doing the Barclays. And then, of course, our gala was our big fundraiser. And that was where all of the effort was being focused. I have done special events my entire career. I've probably run 25 golf tournaments, you know, a number of galas, a bunch of smaller events. And I know, or I knew stepping into this job, that special events were good for some stuff, but they're not a good way to raise money. So what I started doing was moving us away from relying on event income and more towards focusing on individuals, because that's really where the money is. We also, we had a grant writer at that point. She was only working maybe 5 or 6 hours a week for us. So we started to increase her hours. She's a consultant. We eventually hired a few directors of development because we were really trying to figure out like what that job was going to look like. But over this 7-year progression, we now view events as a cultivation tool. We raise money. I mean, our gala raises about nets about $300,000. So, you know, special events are important from a fundraising standpoint because they provide, you know, cash flow. But what we really look at events doing now is being a cultivation tool. So getting the right people in the room, getting new people to know about us, you know, it's a way to establish a relationship. What we have done, now we've got a great development team, and this has happened over probably the last 4 years. Sue Darnus, who is on this call, is our Director of Donor Relations. She's not kind of your typical development director. She owns our database. She's great with data. She's good with relationships. She does a lot of stuff, but I don't think it's kind of your typical, I think it's more like sales and customer service support if she came from the for-profit world. And then we've begun to fill in other team roles. So we've got a director of special events. So Barbara's entire universe is events, and she focuses on that, and we help her with that when she needs it. We have a grants and external relations manager. So she's begun focusing on government relations, and as a result, we've gotten a state grant. We're in the state budget. We've gotten county money. So that's a new source of revenue in the past year. We have increased our grant writers' hours. So we do really, really well with foundations. And then we also have a legacy director who's a consultant. And she has focused on increasing the number of people who are members of our legacy society. And then we just hired a consultant to basically build our major gifts program. So she's setting up the infrastructure. She's set up a process to qualify donors. We're putting impact portfolios together. So really over the last 4 years, we've begun to build out this development team. As you might imagine, that has cost us, that we've had to invest in that. So our staff has grown, our fundraising expenses have grown, but we've also gone from raising $900,000 when I got here to raising about 2 million, or actually our goal this year is 2.2 million. So even though we're spending more money to raise money, we're raising a lot more money. So it really has been a progression from focusing on special events as really our primary source of income to really looking where the big dollars are. And that is in from individual donors. We focus on DAFs, on donor advised funds, building our Legacy Society. I think our portfolio now, we have 21 Legacy Society members with about $1.7 million committed to us. That actually has just happened in the last 2 years. So we've really invested in our fundraising program, and we are seeing results come from that.
All right, wow, that is complicated. So well, before everyone runs out and starts getting on monster.com to hire all those positions you mentioned, and before we get into the questions, John and Dennis, we'll start with you, Dennis. I just wondered if you had any reactions to, Amanda's story and, kind of like calming everyone down a little bit on how they're going to be able to do that overnight. So we'll start with you, Dennis. Any reaction?
Yeah, I'm very positive. I've known Amanda for a long time. I'm very proud of what she's doing. What she's doing is exactly what you need to do. The whole idea of cultivation and a comprehensive plan. And I certainly want to comment upon my own experience later, but I just think Amanda did the right thing. But it takes time, and but it takes some knowledge to understand it's not just about special events and things like that.
John, any reaction?
Yeah, I don't know if I know anybody else that could give 7 years in 5 minutes. That was excellent, Amanda. But, the overwhelming piece is that in 5 minutes, Amanda told us at least 10 initiatives, including hiring people, hiring consultants, and then initiatives within the organization operationally. That can be overwhelming in 5 minutes to think that it took 5 minutes to do it. But if Amanda had more time and she laid out the timeline, she took baby steps that led to medium steps, that then there were times when she was sprinting, but she was sprinting when she had 5 years experience behind her. So what I always say to an organization is, if they want to get a strategic plan together and then they need a development plan to support the strategic plan, take one step at a time. So I'll just give one example of a client we went in that was very underdeveloped, upstate New York, similar to what Amanda walked into. And the first thing we did is we said, well, why don't you invest in screening all of your donors through a donor screening? It was a few $1,000s. And I said, we'll slice and dice that information. So they basically went to their data, their data mining company, and they just, ran it through. It's a couple of $1,000s. But they were afraid to even spend that. But they said, okay, that's a baby step. They got it back. And in the first 10 phone calls to people to invite them down for a tour, to engage them, they had been donating, but they really didn't know that these people were very, very wealthy because they were only giving $100 or $200. Within the first month of doing this, someone made a donation of $25,000, and they turned to us and said, we could have taken this database, thrown it in the garbage, and hired another company and started from scratch, and we'd still be ahead of the game. We had no idea that existed, and so that started the baby steps leading into it. So I would say, latch on to one idea that you might want to do, get your board to get behind it, work it, stay disciplined to it, and then watch it grow as you move along the spectrum.
All right, thanks, John. I'm going to turn things over to Denise to start asking some of the questions that were submitted to us. I'm sure we're going to get questions about how to get the board to invest. So Denise, the program's all yours. I will monitor the chat from here on out to see if anyone has any follow-ups.
Thanks, Jeff. I apologize for the construction behind me. I don't know if everyone could hear it, but I'll mute myself once I ask the questions. In the heart of Hackensack, it just seems to be high risers all around us. So I thank everyone for giving all the questions and sending them in. I really wanted to get into the heart of them. I think personally our biggest problem here at CVH Care is getting the word out about us through technology. I feel that as you get older, it's harder to get into all the nits and grits of technology. as the younger generations seem to have developed Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, everything is just all in one. So I think one of the first questions is email still king, or is outreach flowing to social media channels too? So I think what everyone's asking is, am I still doing constant contact? Am I still doing MailChimp? What are the strategies to get a broader audience through technology? And then we'll go, I don't know, whoever wants to go first. Maybe we'll go across. Amanda first.
Sure, I can answer that. Actually, I don't think anything is king because it totally depends on who you're trying to talk to. We still do print publications, which I know a lot of organizations don't. Actually, we invest, we've got a creative team. We have a consultant who's a writer. We've got a great graphic designer. My team gets together and comes up with kind of the theme for our newsletters. We work on the stories. We try to make everything very donor centric. So we have beautiful printed pieces that we send to our entire database. We can use them to, you know, as leave behinds when we go talk to people. And a lot of our donors are older, so they actually really enjoy the print materials. We take what we produce in print, we digitize it, so it's available on our website. We can email it to people. If you talk to millennials, email is not king. They don't like email. My son, who's 22, I have to text him to tell him I emailed him. So we also, we actually haven't gotten to text to give, like there's some progress that we need to make on the digital end of things. One of the things that we have recently established is an associate board. So this is a board of young professionals. We are relying on them to help us figure out how to communicate with younger donors. We have a young woman who's 25, 26, who does a lot of our social media. So she does that professionally. So she's really driving our social media strategy along with our development team. So I think the best answer to the question is there is no king. The king is whatever communication mode works for the audience you're trying to reach. So if you create something, you need to figure out how to make it work on any platform.
Denise, this is Dennis. Let me just jump in here and add to what Amanda said if I can here. Before we get into a lot of the details about social media and everything else like that, and I agree with everything Amanda's saying, but there's a couple basics that I think we have to have a conversation about is understanding why people give money. And I think one of the things that probably I know that Amanda has done there without having articulated, there's a lot of reasons why you go from a $900,000 fundraising experience to 2.2 million, is that we got to remember that people give for two major reasons, right? Yes, they give because they've been asked. Yes, they give because someone they respect. Yes, they give to make a difference. But there's two major reasons people give money today than ever before. They give to success, not to distress. So the more you can communicate the positive impact that you have had on the lives of others, people will give to you. And that transforms you from what I used to call the tin cup theory, when people feel like it was begging, to the investment theory. And the other thing it's important to understand is that it may sound like a play on words here, but people give to the needs of those you serve, not your organizational needs. So the more you can convey the impact you're having on the lives of others, whether it's social media, print media, whatever it is here, you got to tell your story. And the other way, great way of telling your story is through your website, but have people that you're serving tell the story. It's one thing for the CEO or the board chair to tell the story about what you're doing. It's another to hear from the person that's benefiting. So I just think we lose sight sometimes as to thinking about strategies and processes and all the things we need to do, and remembering what makes a difference. And as the more we can convey the success, the impact our organization is having, the more better fundraising we're going to do.
Right, and just to add to that, it's an and not a but, because everything that Amanda and Dennis said is spot on, and it's something that we believe. if you know, to add to that is we're really in a donor-centric environment. I mean, we probably always were, but right now it's all about the donor, and donors are very sophisticated and they have many ways to give and they have many charities to give to. So differentiating ourselves, of course, is number one, but donors want to give the way they want to give. They want to receive news the way they want to receive it. And if we give it to them the way we want to give it, it might miss. So we're finding that there are older donors that aren't even savvy with email. Then we've got older donors that feel like they're really mastered email, but they've just about gotten past the flip phone. And then you've got other people, regardless of age, that are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn all day long. Well, I say all of the above. Not only is nothing king, but nothing can be left out, because in print is the most underrated today, because that's the big differentiation. That's the thing that everybody did print. When email came out, you were differentiating yourselves. Now everything's email, and if you send something in print, like I get 200, maybe if I don't clean it and I don't watch my filters, I probably could get up to 300 emails a day. And I may get 3 pieces of US Postal Service mail a day now, okay? So when I do get it, I read all my mail. I'm not so sure that I scour all my emails. So I think we need to be where people want to be, and asking young professionals, getting young advisors, talking to older people and older donors and ask them how they like your pieces. Even just sitting down, I used to sit down with our newsletter and meet with people to go, and I'd say, hey, I brought the newsletter with me. What do you like? What don't you like? And then that's real readers telling you their opinion. So I wouldn't underestimate all people, and create relationships with them and take their advice.
Thank you. That was great. The next one is in regards to the tools and technology. What are the best online channels or tools for fundraising that organizations have not heard of, and what have been a positive impact on that? Amanda?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't have an answer to that. I think, I feel like there's just so much information out there now that I don't know if there's a secret. I think it really just goes back to kind of hitting all of them and making sure that your message is consistent, that it is donor-centric but mission-focused, and being consistent across all the channels.
I would agree with Amanda. I mean, I'm sort of probably older than a lot of people on the call today. And so I remember when there was no email, but I think direct mail is still a big factor for me, because as like John and everybody else, I get hundreds of emails into my company every day, but I have sometimes not wanting to throw something away if I see an attractive direct mail piece. And so I don't think there's one thing. I think the mistake, Denise, that we can all make, or other people watching and participating with us today can make, there's not a magic bullet. I think that's a fallacy to think there's some magic social media bullet that's going to turn it all around here. I think there's some really, I'll defer to John and Amanda, but I think there's some really basics to understand about, why people give money, and how to make your organization into a high culture of philanthropy. I'm a little concerned that we get into too much of the weeds. I don't know how John and Amanda feel, but I don't think it's all like the strategy. I think it's the underlying cause of why people will give to you. And then we get lost in what's the best social media package, what's the best, is it Salesforce, is it CRM, is it this one, is it donor strategy, donor perfect? I think we get lost with that. I don't think that's as important as people think.
Well, yeah, and I agree, Dennis. It's just that if you're a local organization where you can touch and feel your donors, and you can separate your major donors out, you don't even have to send them anything, because if you know they're a major donor, you can just call them every other day and see how they're doing, invite them to lunch once a week, take them to, invite them to an event, and they'll just keep giving you the money. But that's people where you can meet and be face-to-face with your donors. But there are organizations, and maybe some people on this call, where you've never met your donor. Everything has to be done either through mail, email. You don't have a way. You've got a national organization. People give from all over the world. A couple of areas of artificial intelligence is, is here. It's not coming, it's here. There's, areas like Boodle AI, which is a way for people to give Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain. It's real. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars is donated through that. And it goes all the way back to 2015. It's 6 years old. It's not like yesterday. We're hearing about it now, but people did it. And just an example, like Twitch, their gamers gave $100 million on Twitch because they didn't even want to waste time leaving their game. They were able to do it on Twitch. They didn't want to go to email. They're not going to do email, and not at that age for sure. But 100 million was given through Twitch by gamers. And so if you start to research that, rather than just say, oh, well, that's not for me, just decide if it's for the donors. If it's not for the donors, then it's not for you. But if there are donors that want to give that way, we converted a client to throw Venmo as an easy way to give money. And the original thing was, well, PayPal, Venmo, they charge even more than the credit cards. I said, yeah, but their giving among young people went up like 1,000% because it was just too easy for them to get a notification and be able to click the Venmo and boom, the money was gone. They didn't have to think about it. So it's all about the donor, all about the donor. The technology follows the donor.
Thank you. In regards to that, the Twitch fundraising, YouTube giving, we also have the crowdfunding. What have you felt have been the most profitable in today's times, especially during the pandemic, where it's hard to get a lot of people to give? We personally have not done any Twitch or any type of online donors that way. No one has given in Venmo. It's actually old fashioned where people are calling me with their credit card information, and that's how they're giving it. So how do you get that group of older generations to actually get involved in more of a Twitch platform or a giving platform, a social media platform?
Well, let me just jump in. Maybe I wasn't clear before, but it's not about getting old people to go to Twitch. It's if you don't do Twitch, you're not going to get gamers. So in other words, if you don't want gamers to give, then just stay away from Twitch, and they're not going to give because they don't even own a credit card. But with Venmo, they said, well, nobody's giving through Venmo. We have older people. As soon as they put Venmo on the platform and it was a choice, people were clicking Venmo and PayPal, and it's almost like play money. The psychologists say it's like going to Atlantic City. When you cash in $1,000 and take $1,000 in chips and you go to the table, in your mind, somewhere in our unconscious, that money's already spent. So when we lose the 1,000 at the table, we're not mad. The decision was made when we converted the chips from cash into chips. They said if we sat down with $1,000 in $100 bills and $50 bills and started gambling like that, we would stop halfway because we'd have $500, say, oh, I don't want to lose this $5, we put it in our pocket. But once we get 1,000 to the table, it's gone. Well, they say that the kids and even us, once it's in Venmo and it's sitting in a PayPal account, it's different than our credit card balance and our balance in our checking account. So if you don't have people that have Venmo and you put it on your platform and 3 months go by and no one clicks Venmo, then I'm wrong. Get it off your platform and go back to the old-fashioned way. But if you don't try it, you won't find out about the donor. So again, it's the donor that wants Twitch, not the Twitch wants the donor. And just one comment about this came from a webinar I was on with the Attorney General's office of New Jersey, and it was about crowdfunding. And what happens is, be careful about especially if you know people that are doing this. If a charity runs a platform like that, and then you take the money and you donate it to a cause or to something, you're allowed to do that. But when you give money to an individual that house burned down or there's sickness in the family and people are raising $30, $50, $100,000, just know that the IRS and the state is looking for the income on that. And they're going to go to those people and get the income. The person that gives $50 and takes it off their income tax, nobody's looking for them. But they do look for the people with the $30,000 or $100,000 and it becomes a problem. So you really have to look into gifting directly to someone and having them accept that money. And now it's on a public platform. So, I don't know if any of you run into that, but I've seen situations where people really needed the money. They got $100,000 and all of a sudden they wanted $20,000, immediately. because they wanted the 20%, down payment on their income tax return.
Amanda, Dennis, do you have anything to add?
I have to say that kind of the next frontier for us is a lot of the peer-to-peer and crowdfunding. People have done Facebook fundraisers for us, but we haven't really gone to that next level yet. What we're getting ready to do right now is completely overhaul our website to make it more user-friendly, to make it look like it's for the 21st century. Our website's only 3 or 4 years old, but it looks dated. So that's kind of our first step. And then we're going to begin to incorporate some of these other fundraising techniques, like peer-to-peer and text to give and that kind of stuff. But I have to reiterate, it's not the technology, it's not the platform, it's really meeting your donors where they are and understanding what messages resonate with them and what ways they prefer to give to you. So it's not about us, it's about them.
Denise, Dennis, if I could follow up with that, I would like to almost ask our participants if they could answer this question, or even a show of hands. How many of them would consider themselves having a tri-partnership of philanthropy, where there's a three-legged stool? One part of it is the CEO, one part's the board, and one part is their development officer. And how do they work together as a team and understanding the role they have in each? To me, that understanding is really probably more important to me than technology. And I don't know how other people feel about that, but when you have your board in one place and your CEO not getting involved in another, and the board not wanting to be involved in the culture of philanthropy, that to me is a challenge that most people have, not necessarily the technology. Just curious.
We definitely have a division in quite a few nonprofits where the board and the CEO and the development office all don't work hand in hand. It's almost like separate entities.
So, Denise, let me see if I can help with that, if you don't mind, and see if anybody else wants to join me in this. Okay. So I know that most people would rather stick pins in their eyes and raise money. And I once, I was the founder of the program at Fairleigh Dickinson years ago called the Center for Excellence in Nonprofit Leadership, Governance, and Philanthropy. And I created a program with Amanda and others at Bergen Community College. And so in my life as a CEO and as a board chair, I raised a lot of money, but I did it without even realizing how I did it. And one of the things that I learned when I raised a lot of money as president of Somerset Medical Center is that I learned things about why people give you. So a couple of things here. Very few board members have any experience or any training to deal with philanthropy and the whole process of fundraising. Very few. But we assume and think they do, and we get mad at them when they don't live up to the responsibilities we gave on a piece of paper. So here's an example, though, I'd like to have everybody think about is this year. And I'm going to tell you this quick story if I can. 15 years ago, I was asked to facilitate a workshop for a board on fundraising. I said, just fundraising, nothing else, not leadership, fundraising. So I asked them up front in the meeting if they could tell me their top achievements. This was 15 years ago. And there was silence in the room. And someone said we did our budget on time. Someone said we'd spent 6% of funds on fundraising. And I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be a long night. And finally, a woman in the back of the room says, Dennis, we do a program called PALS. P-A-L-S. This was an organization in New Jersey that dealt with domestic violence and sexual assault. She says, we have a program so we can treat children who've been subjected to domestic violence and sexual assault. We treat them again so they can have healthy relationships again with surrogate parents, school teachers, classmates, etc. I said, how do you communicate that? So what I ask people to do is that I don't want my board members actually asking people for money because they're going to ask for too few dollars or accept too few dollars. I want my board to help me cultivate 3 relationships a year, either an individual, a family, a corporation, or foundation. 3. So if I have 10 board members, now I have potentially 30 people help me cultivate a relationship. And my job as CEO, or my job as a development officer, to help them work that process. I think if more people went to creating that kind of a culture and not ask, when we constantly demand board members to ask for money, it's the equivalency of asking your 30-year-old son or daughter to go to the Garden State Plaza Mall this weekend and find someone to marry. It is just uncomfortable. It's unusual. So I think really we need to go away from some of to thinking there's a technology solution to it's really very common sense. You know, Americans give last 2 years, $427 billion that they give in U.S. giving. And yet so many organizations still struggle with fundraising, even though there's your conference today, books, articles, because it's what we're missing is the emotional component to this. And so I just want to have that, you know, add that or have a chance to talk about that. It's really about how to overcome everybody getting on the same page. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd like to stay on the board relations topic right now. If we could just talk about when you have a few board members that are dragging the organization down or impeding progress, how do you solve the issue when others are resisting any confrontation about it?
I'll be happy to jump in, but just clarify the question again, please. Just clarify the question.
When you have a few board members that are kind of dragging the organization down and the progress isn't what you thought it would be, how do you solve the issue when others are resisting any confrontation?
I'm going to jump in here first. Clearly, when you have board misbehavior, the person that has to deal with this really is the board chair. I would not recommend this to be the CEO. I think it's a bad way for the CEO or executive director to get involved in this here, okay? And so I think the best way of doing it is having either the board chair or who that board member has the most trust and respect for, and just pull them aside and have a conversation. Dennis, listen, you're this or that is having an impact on all of us. Have that conversation. If usually that conversation, Denise, can help turn things around here. If that doesn't do it here, then you have to look at things like, you know, not reappointing people to the board and term limits like that. But you really, negative board behavior has an impact on everybody's morale. And so it really has to be the board experience, not CEO experience, or not CEO interference, if that makes any sense.
Let me just add to that, and then I'd love to hear, you know, Amanda's take on that, because not only, you know, Amanda's on other boards as a board member, as Dennis and I are, so we have different vantage points of looking at this, not only from our professional life, but also in our volunteer life the same way. In addition to what Dennis said, sometimes the board behavior is not disruptive in the sense of demeanor, but it may be disruptive in the sense of progress. So I remember one specific meeting, we were pitching the organization was interviewing 3 or 4 firms to have them come in and do some you know, major gift consulting, and we were in just talking to them, and we made a couple of recommendations, you know, just on our prospecting, saying this is what we could do, and immediately we got shut. Oh, we can't do that. The board, we have 2 board members, so they just never let us do that. So now I have the development director, the CEO, and the board chair in the room, and the 3 of them are pretty much saying that's untouchable. I wish that I could tell you that was the only case that happened and it was a one-off, but there's so many places, including clients that we've started working with, that we found out after the fact, oh no, we can't do that because this board member just won't do it, and everybody just is afraid to confront him. So I think Dennis's point is very true. If you have a disruptive board member, his advice was spot on. But I think, you know, Dennis has probably the most experience of maybe anybody on the call, but most people that I know, as far as dealing with boards and getting them in line and getting them to walk in lockstep with the mission of an organization, because that's where his sweet spot is, just my opinion. But I'm sure that someone like him could get people to move off a dime if they're holding the organization back from progress because they don't want to do crowdfunding, or they don't want to do an outside event, or they don't want to do an event during the week. It has to be on a Saturday night. This is the stuff that I hear. And my concern is, how do they allow a board member to control this year after year after year when most people would like to try something new? If you don't try something new, you're going backwards. Amanda, I don't know if you want to jump in before Dennis may want to rebut what I said. I don't know.
No, good job.
So a couple of thoughts. Peer-to-peer is always best. So if there's a problem on our board chair or another board member would address it with the problematic board member. My first job in the nonprofit sector was at the American Cancer Society, and somebody taught me always put a volunteer between yourself and a problem. So you know, if you use volunteers, having them be in the role of speaking to a fellow volunteer, or you know, use volunteers to, that wouldn't be the proper role for me to address another board member if there was a problem. I will say that I think a lot of this goes to how you recruit your board members. You know, there needs to be a lot of, you shouldn't be adding people to the board because they want to put it on their resume, or because it's, you know, a status symbol, or because, gosh, we just really need a board member. You really need to give thought to who you're recruiting. They need to first have passion for the mission. They need to have a good understanding of what their role is going to be on the board. They need to, you know, your bylaws should very clearly state how things work. And I would say that boards shouldn't even be involved in deciding whether you're going to do peer-to-peer fundraising, or they approve the budget, and then the staff figures out how to raise the money. So, and then you draw the board into that strategy and use them strategically where they are best able to make a contribution. So on our board, we actually don't have, for the most part, board members asking people for money, but we do certainly look to them for connections to people who might be willing to embrace our mission. Our board chair, who is a physician, you know, he went with me on a visit to the Valley Hospital Foundation. He happens to be part of Valley Health. It was like he was visiting royalty when we were there. And you can bet that his endorsement and his appearance at this meeting had an effect on our application. So I don't think board members should be asking directly for money. I do believe that they are the ones who can connect your organization to potential supporters.
Right on, Amanda, right on.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was great. I think some nonprofits have a problem with retaining board members. Do you have any, if I'll rephrase it.
No, it's okay.
If we need a consultant or a coach for fundraising, but we don't have a big budget for that, are there other options to pay for this feature? Is there a way to justify the expense to board members in regards to getting someone from the outside to come in and evaluate what we're doing?
Denise, do you want to skip over the question about retaining board members?
Yeah, I'll go into that another time.
The,
I'm just going by the questions on here. I won't go into my own questions.
Well, just real quick, there's a real answer to that, though. You have to engage them. You can't have a board meeting that's all about just committee reports. Every board meeting should have the 50% rule. And the 50% rule is 50% of the time. So sometimes it's 20-80, but besides the committee reports, which are important to hear, have a question about a strategic issue or challenge and address at the board meeting, something like this here. So today, after, you know, we're going to talk about what impact are we having in our community? What's the value we provide in the community? Have a discussion and make sure that the board chair is engaging everybody, because as you know, there are always two people on every board that won't shut up, and there's two people on the board that don't say anything. So most board meetings are boring. Okay, they're boring. And the way to change that is to change the kind of a mindset. So you want to be engaging your board in a conversation that they can participate in. That's really important. I'll stop there, but there are simple answers to these questions. So there are things you can do to make your board more engaged and motivated.
And it also goes back to what Amanda said before about when you onboard the board member, having clear expectations of what's expected of them and what they can expect from the board and the organization. If that's clear up front and then you deliver that, then they'll probably stay until their term is up and you won't see them abruptly leaving. But feeling that they're not contributing as a board member is the first reason why they're going to leave. It's
Yeah.
usually not going to be somebody insulted them. If you got the right board member, they got tough skin, they got thick skin. But if they look at a board meeting that's boring, it's a bore meeting, and after 2 of those, people who are busy are either going to be looking for another board to serve, or they're just looking to get off this board because they have better things to do with their time. So as executive directors, as board chairs that might be in, on this call today, it's up to you to make sure that they're engaged. Like Dennis said, that's a great way just to ask a question, but get them speaking. If they don't say a word at a meeting, a couple of meetings go by, they're going to drop off, or they're just going to check out and maybe come. If it's in person, they get a free meal. Maybe they like the social aspect of the before the meeting and after, but they're not feeling fulfilled, during the meeting. And just to dovetail onto your other question, and then I certainly want to hear what the other people say, but when you're making an investment, and that's what Amanda said originally, she didn't say we spent money on fundraising, she said we invested in it. And from 900,000 to 2.2, when she invested only a fraction, it's up to the board to have the foresight to say, we need to do this. We need to go into a credit line. We need to release some budget money, because if it's going to be a true return on investment, then all you're doing is borrowing money and putting it back. It's not like if we decide to paint the place, it may look nice, but after the paint is up, you don't get that money back. Nobody gives you a rebate on the paint, but you do get a rebate on your investment in fundraising, whether it's restructuring the board, putting in a platform for data review, or it's hiring a coach to make sure that every day when you go out and speak to a major donor that you're saying the right thing, doing the right thing, and following up the right way. And that can be worth, your weight in gold. I've seen 2 very strategic ways to do that, recently, where board members got together and made an interest-free loan to the organization to hire the consultant for the 6 months to do whatever they were doing. And then they got their money back very quickly. It didn't even take 6 months, but they were able to just, like, it was put up or shut up. And they basically said, look, we'll put the loan in. If it doesn't work out, we'll convert it into a donation, but we want our money back. We're not handing this to you. We want to invest. And if we get the investment back, it's worth our investment. So I'm sure there are other creative ways, but if an organization says we can't afford it and they know that it's going to be a return on investment, then I would question their judgment. That's all.
I have to say that in December of 2019, our board approved our 2020 budget, which included this new position of government relations, external relations and communications. And, 6 months later, we were in the state budget for a very significant grant. And it's because we had somebody with the skill set and the knowledge of how government works, how you have to, make connections with your legislators. Like Joanne knew everything to do. And, that big grant paid for her salary many times over. So if the board hadn't said, yes, we're gonna take a chance on this and we're gonna invest in the fundraising team, then we wouldn't have gotten that money. So it really is about an investment. And that's also how you have to think, how you have to approach your donors. They are not giving you money, no tin cups, no begging on your knees. It's you are investing in an organization that is having a real impact in the community. And if you invest, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I like to add to what Amanda just said. I think Amanda's obviously super and one of a kind, and does an amazing job. And I'm proud to be her friend and colleague. But I want to add to what she's saying. It's so true. And one of the books I wrote, I think 10 years ago, was called The Nonprofit Board Therapist, A Guide to Unlocking Your Organization's True Potential. And in the 4th section, it was called, and it was like, seek investors, not funders. And I think it's important for you as an organization, maybe take the word fundraising, which has all this connotation of fear and rejection and everything. Think about you asking someone to invest in your organization. And think about asking the question, why should they invest in you and someone else here? And so when you think about that, therefore it goes to the board level, you're going to take some calculated risk to make an investment in this Director of Government Affairs, which has turned out quite well for Amanda and others. So move from the tin cup thinking about we just have to have, 5 million events. But think about seeking investors. Think about your donors as investors in you. And I think your strategy will come along accordingly. But I think we need to stop thinking about, we have to have the money first before we do anything. That's not why people give money. And what's amazing to me is when you ask people, how much money do you think Americans give annually? They say, I don't know, 2 billion, 500 million, and it's 427 billion they give to you. So how do you get that piece of the pie? You've got to have a culture and a mindset that what you're doing has a positive impact on lives, and you want people to invest in that going forward. You got to think about investing your donors as investors. Just as if it was a company and you want to invest in my stock price, I want them to invest in your stock price, the nonprofit stock price. So think about that for a second. It's a mindset change. I've overwhelmed everybody.
Some great information out there.
That's true. I mean, it's all, we've done this. That's Denise.
I just keep writing. I just keep writing. So if we want to change topics to get on something else, I know a lot of people have been talking about in-person events. The Meadowlands Chamber has their first in-person event coming up in June, and I'm just extremely excited and honored to be one of the chosen for the Arlene Simpson Award. So I'm really excited to have in-person events. I know a lot of people have been trying to plan galas on large scales, small scales. Do you think it's the right time to be doing it maybe in the fall or in the summer? Anyone have any suggestions on 2022s to wait to do it till 2022? Amanda, have you?
Oh yeah, yes, actually. So we, in January, actually had a paddle tennis tournament in person at Upper Ridgewood Tennis Club. And so we worked it out with the club where it was limited to their members. And it was actually successful beyond what we thought it could possibly be. And, people were masked. Everybody followed all the rules. Next week, we have another in-person event at Elementary in Hackensack, a brew pub. We have limited the number of people who can be there. People will be masked unless they're sitting down. A lot of it can be outside. So we are doing everything we can to make our guests comfortable. We are having a golf outing in July, and that's outside, so that's actually kind of easier. The club has actually made a lot of changes because of COVID and the way they conduct events. So we feel actually very confident about that. The question is our gala in September. We are having, it is an in-person event. The question right now is whether we go full on hybrid, which means, that actually means doing lots of pre-recorded things, and so that our guests at home can enjoy the same kind of event without actually being at the gala. We're going to wait a little while to see how things go. Numbers are coming down in Bergen County, which is great. As a healthcare center, we keep our eye on that very closely. I think right now we're kind of leaning towards it's not going to be a complete hybrid event. So we're not going to, it costs about $15,000 to do all of those pre-recorded segments. It's actually quite complicated. It's like running two separate events. What we're thinking now is that we will have in-person guests, and we will probably just stream the program portion of the event. But everybody, those at home and those at the actual event, will be able to participate through our online, our Katego is who we use. So they'll be able to bid and do all the things that they could do if they were actually at the event, but they can do that from home. So events are like, it's a little uncomfortable. Like, actually, I'm feeling really shy about going someplace because I haven't seen a lot of people in so long. but I think we're moving slowly ahead with in-person events, because honestly, that's really what it's all about, is being able to see people and make connections.
Hey, Amanda, this might be too technical of a question or too specific, but I think some of our organizations on here are rather small and aren't doing a gala quite the size of yours and are thinking about a hybrid event. How do you, any thoughts on pricing? So, people who want to stay home, don't want to pay, $195 for a meal they're not getting, but you don't want to shortchange the organization and give people a $50 way out. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I actually have a very, very specific thoughts on that. I think that if you're doing a remote event, a virtual event, or even a hybrid event, there should be a free option for people. They can just come and watch, no matter, because you want to get as many people there as you can. I know a lot of organizations like Flat Rock Brook has done a recent gala. A lot of people that are doing virtual events have the free option, and then there's an option where they can pay some money and they might get a membership to Flat Rock, or in our case, if we actually have an advocate sponsorship for our gala, which is $1,000, but last year when we did a completely virtual event, they got a gift card to a restaurant. We actually hand delivered our little gift bag that had like a little split of champagne and 2 champagne glasses and a COVID kit. So we had a free option because we want as many people there as possible, hoping that they will buy raffle tickets or bid on auction items. But then there's also a paid option, but it comes with some perks.
Dennis, John, you guys have any thoughts on that?
I have to tell you something. I have mixed feelings about a lot of gals these days. I'm actually enjoying virtual stuff. I don't mind make a contribution. I can stay home on a Friday or Saturday between you and me. So I'm probably a little opposite. And I think that we're not a fundraising firm like what John is and others. I think the clients that we have that do fundraising around the country, they're making more money net on a virtual event than they are on live events. And I think, we all look forward to seeing ourselves in person, but I think there's a combination of things you can have. I think the way our lives have forever changed, and I think they'll never go back to the way they were. And so I think you're going to see a lot of virtual things.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for the short term, I would say, since the weather is going to be relatively nice from today through, at least maybe early October, I would stress that organizations to look at as many outside events that you can do, whether that's, somebody just is doing a minor league baseball game and they threw it out and they got like 50 people to show up. They tried to do the same minor league baseball game 2-3 years ago, and they were lucky they could get 15. So all of a sudden they've got 50 people going to hear the mission and go to a minor league game cheap, but it's a chance to get people together, like we said. So I would look at boutique events, smaller groups of people indoors, and then whatever a reasonable amount of people is for outdoors. So golf tournaments are selling out. Golf tournaments that have never sold out in 30 years are selling out. And it's because it's one of the few things you can do that raises money, brings people together. It's outside. You don't have to wear a mask. And if someone came in and hovered over the golf course and saw the way the golf course was set up with people playing golf, it would look exactly like it did pre-COVID. There's not a lot of things we could say look the same as pre-COVID. So I would, say that virtual golf is going to fall flat on its face. Somebody tried to do that in September last year and literally almost lost money on it because everybody was running golf outings, and when they heard like you're doing a virtual, they thought they were copping out. But the virtual galas did very well because no one wanted to be in a big room with a lot of people they didn't know. I also like Amanda's suggestion. Don't take the bait of trying to charge $25 to be online. You're better off letting them in for free. And if you get them hooked on your mission and you connect the viewer to the mission, they might give multiples of that $25. And they'll almost feel like, I'm getting this for free. There's really nothing for free. I'll check it out. And then they'll give you more money. If you go to charge them 25, it's like, well, I'm not going to go to the event because I don't want to be with people, but I'm not going to pay $25 to sit in my living room. So there's desirability before affordability. If they desire you and your mission, they will afford to send you the money. If it's just a registration form, it's too easy to say no to $25 because, you know, I'll keep the money in my pocket, you know? So don't shy away from exclusive mini events. I'm going to, from here, I'm going to a mini event, a golfing event today, which is only 40 people. It started with 12 5 years ago. People get invited for free. They play a very exclusive club. The cost is probably upwards close to $1,000 a person. We were able to create for the client such a great opportunity that a board member actually sponsored it. So we had a budget for it, but now it gets covered. But people have given, one guy came, was so enthralled with the event that he gave you know, $250,000. So
Wow.
it's a major event, but it's a mini event, exclusive, invite only, no ads, no journals, no whole sponsors, no nothing. It's easy, but it's a small event. And I've done that with private chefs in the city. I've done it with museums. I've done it with other things. It's getting small groups of people together and having people on the board invite their friends for free, but those friends come and feel like, okay, I can afford it. And so don't shy away from those in good times or bad times. They work all the time.
You can email me his name and number. I would love to reach out to him.
Sure.
That's great. That's really great. We have our annual golf outing in September, and we've Glen Ridge Country Club has basically opened it up where we could have the maximum golfers. We could have a sit-down dinner. We could have a big breakfast, and I'm having a little anxiety about it, but I think we'll be okay. Hopefully, come September, as the cases go lesser and lesser in Bergen and Essex County. I had another question from someone on the panel. Our organization had to downsize staff during pandemic. We may hire back in future, but at the moment, the smaller staff is impacting fundraising capabilities. Do you recommend investing in consultancy to advise on hiring strategy, organization structure, or for advice on how we supplement functions?
I'll let that go to John.
Well, I think you have to go back to the strategic, you know, plan and mission of the organization and find out if you're able to continue the mission with what you have. If the issue is salaries because of benefits and long-term commitment, then maybe doing what Amanda, you know, she mentioned earlier, she has a combination of W-2 employees, probably full-time and part-time, and then she has 1099 consultants that fill in the gap. Those are people that can come alongside you, help you get ahead of the game as an investment that actually can help you hire people, you know, back. So we've gone into organizations as a consultant that had no development office. So we became the de facto development office. And then shortly after we were able to complete, you know, our assignment, we were able to help them hire a development director. And then the development director was able to go on, and all we did was offer minimal consulting throughout the next year. And then they were off and running, and they're doing great. So making an investment in a consultant or a 1099 person is a lot less expensive, comes out of different budgets, maybe needs less approvals, and you can kind of fire them on the spot, where you have to give warnings to employees. But if a consultant on a Wednesday, you just don't like them, on Thursday they're gone. I mean, it's as simple as that. So I would recommend that you don't lose your mission and your mission and your strategic plan over the need to, you know, have budget cuts. Find ways to invest that will get you the return on investment. So as an example, bringing another accountant or bookkeeper in to help someone do the finances quicker may not be a good investment, but bringing someone in that can go out and knock on doors and bring in 10 times their salary is a good investment.
Right.
And I would say that you can't raise money without the people there to raise money. Like if you're going to make an investment, it's like it's like sales and marketing in a corporation. If you don't have salespeople and you're not marketing your product, you're not going to be selling any product. And fundraising is the same way. If you don't have people focusing on it, you're not going to raise money.
Dennis?
You got to invest in success. It's all about investing in success. You got to transform your mindset from thinking about we need fundraising for our needs to investing in our success. And it's a mindset change. And I'll just give you a kind of a quick story with my own background, Denise, everybody else. So yes, I was involved in the late 80s as a young guy, being the executive vice president of Hohenheim Hospital and being involved in my first capital campaign in 1988, which sounds like a long time ago, and it was. But I do remember becoming the president of Somerset Medical Center in '99, and we were embarking upon a significant expansion. I got to the hospital. I lived in Bergen County. It was 60 miles away, and it had really a very bad reputation. We turned that around, and we knew we had to raise a lot of money to get this project off the ground. And all the consultants in the world told us we can probably raise 12 million. And I remember saying to myself, yeah, but we need 20. I can only borrow 80 for $100 million project. And we raised 30. And I realized I learned so much from that, which was that if people think you're a dying fish, no one's going to buy you for the dinner.
That's right.
And so you've got to convey to people that you're an exciting organization having an impact on people's lives. And it's an emotional appeal. People give for emotional reasons. Some people might give for tech. It's emotional connection. And we can spend all morning on the panel talking about technology. I'm sure that has an impact, but this is an emotional issue. And we either have emotions about fundraising that's crazy us to be anxious and fearful, like I don't want to do this, is like there's a stick and pin in my eyes, or think about it as this year. We should all be proud of the impact we're having on people's lives, because throughout the whole history, but through certainly the past year of coronavirus, the nonprofit community is the glue that's held everybody together. And so you and what you do and the colleagues on this panel today and all the people participating are making an impact on people's lives. And it's okay to ask people, could you invest in us? But don't ask to give money to us because what we need. Ask people to invest in us because we're successful and we want to continue to succeed. I just can't overemphasize that. It works.
So Dennis, that's a good philosophy, and I think everyone agrees with that in principle. But so we're about 15 minutes from concluding. Well, I think people like to come on these calls because they want you to tell them what to do. So when they get off this call, if maybe each of you could answer, what's the first thing they should do with the information you guys have given this morning, an action, something they can go back to their office and tell somebody else, we should do this?
First thing I would do is I would want to talk to my team, and I want to prepare for a discussion at my next board meeting to talk about the achievements we've had in the past year and what's the impact we're having on people's lives and what is our value to the community. I want that discussion. When you can answer what value are we providing to the community, what's the impact we're having, our achievements, you're on the road to being a successful creating a culture for life. But you have to have those discussions. Don't talk about technology, talk about the impact your organization is having.
That I would say that's the first thing you should do. I agree. The second thing you should do is with that information, now that you have that information, you know the impact you make, I would say figure it out from lists, from data, or anecdotally sit around a table and say, who are the top 20 stakeholders of this organization? They could be the people who give you the most money. They could be, a person in the community that shows up at all your events. It could be somebody that has a lot of influence but doesn't have a lot of money. And I would make an appointment with them and test your hypothesis that Dennis just told you to do, which is finding out where your impact is, and have that discussion. Invite them to lunch and say, hey, I want to go over this and I want your advice. These are the things that we're doing. This is what we see it. This is how we're presenting it. This is our brochure. This is our memo. This is an email. Bring out, put it right in front of them at a physical lunch across the table with a mask on. I don't care, but get them to give you their advice. And if they commit and say, well, I would change this, I would change this. It doesn't mean you have to change your whole design, but they're now engaged. And, people will underwrite what they write. If you tell them to help write a newsletter, they will read the newsletter. If you help them plan an event, they will show up at the event. And so the same thing is if you ask their opinion on how you impact the community, they will tell you the impact that you have on the community. One short example, a national organization that has homeless shelters in 21 states realized that they did not have homeless shelters in the other states of the fifth. Let's just take the 48 continental United States. They were not in 27 states. So they ran their entire million donors through a data screening. It cost them money. And they found 1,000 people that were in the uber wealthy, that 1%, 1/2 of 1%, 1/4 of 1%, that were giving money in 27 states that had never seen one of these facilities in the 21 states. $100 here, $50. They liked the letter they got. You know, they got a letter because with a million donors, you can afford to send out, you know, letters and emails. So they picked 4 states that had the most people, and they hired me on a special assignment to be them, fly to these states, go out and meet with the people. I became the development director. It was kind of fun because I was going back in the trenches like I was when I ran the foundation at a hospital. And now I'm no longer giving advice, I'm actually doing it. So I took their brochures, I did what Dennis said. I talked to them about, give me the top 10 things you do for these kids, these runaways, and this homeless shelter. What is it where's your impact? I went up and I said, here's our brochure, here's this. What do you think? Everybody had an opinion. Not one person sat there and said, it looks fine to me, what do I know? They were all like, oh, I really like this. Oh, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. Then I went back, I said, mock up something. I went back to them the next month, and I went in and I said, I listened to you. What do you think about this? Oh, you listened to me, whatever. And I said, well, and then you know what most of them said? Well, how can I help you? So people were giving $100, $200, $300. And in that campaign, within 6 months, I had raised $1 million from a number of donors. The most was $250, and it went all the way down to $10,000. At that point, they now hired people for all those states, and I was done. They didn't want to hire those people because if they hired them, onboarded them, and sent them out, and it didn't work, now you got to fire them. Me, they could fire overnight. So it happened to work. And at the end of 6 months, they said, we don't need you anymore, but we'll keep you in mind. If you want a reference, give me a call. But I was so happy that it worked, but I knew it would work because that's how I got taught. And I did it. So do what Dennis said. Find out around the table what's your differentiation, what is really your value, and then go out and talk to people about it, and they will self-select in. People love to buy, they don't want to be sold. Sometimes we don't have to ask. If we do a good enough job at showing them where our impact is, people will be like, I want part of that. That's the best advice I could give you for this whole hour and a half.
That was some good advice. Amanda, tell people what to do when they get back to their office.
Well, I like Dennis and John's suggestion about, having a board discussion or a discussion of leadership about what your impact is. I would maybe come at it in a little different way though. You can do an exercise, a group exercise, kind of writing the obituary for your organization, because sometimes talking about what would be missing if the organization was no longer there it's just a different way to look at it.
Yeah, sure.
I like that.
So I would maybe start, that could be a great board meeting. Generative board meetings where you've got something coming out of them, and like we still have a few committee reports, but most of the work at BVMI goes on in the committees, and then we are trying, and we're doing a better job, I think, of making our board meetings more generative, where there's some tough question that we want people to chew on and figure out, like, how, a strategy to address something, as opposed to sitting there and listening to somebody, tell you what is in their written report that you could read on your own. After kind of figuring out, well, gosh, if BVMI wasn't here anymore, there'd be 1,400 patients who wouldn't be getting healthcare, and then their whole family would be suffering because they're sick and blah, blah, blah. I think then you look at what it is you need to be successful. You look at the pieces that you already have in place and the ones that you're missing, and figure out how to get those missing pieces. You could, you could recruit more volunteers. You could get your board to say, yes, we're going to invest in this position, and this is the ROI that we expect. You could reach out to Catch a Fire, which is a great, if you guys haven't used Catch a Fire, it's a wonderful resource, a free resource. They're skilled volunteers who will do projects for nonprofit organizations. It's catchfire.org, I think. So start pulling in the resources that you need in order to accomplish your goals, and then just go from there.
I love what Amanda said, but I want to add to it. What I think when you talked about your obituary, what you're really thinking about, you're appealing to people's emotions and heart. What would happen if we weren't here? And so I agree, this is an emotional issue here. So I'd like to leave everybody with, again, these two thoughts here. If you believe that people give to success, not to the stress, then begin immediately to write down what is the success you're having. And if you believe that people give the needs of those you serve, that your organization needs, then write down how the impact you're having on those, and ask yourself this question: are we telling that story on our website? Are we telling that story in our communications? Are we telling? Are we having people like Amanda or John or me or all of you, on the website? But are you having those you serve tell the stories? There's nothing to me more impactful than having someone to say, because of this organization, I now have this in my life here. And I'll tell you this one brief story from a long time ago, but I helped an organization and they eventually had a woman that had gone through their program, again, with domestic violence, and at a big gala, she went up and told the story. And it was heartbreaking, but it has a positive ending. And I'm not going to go through the whole details, but you talked about how that organization helped her and her children build a new life for themselves. It was so impactful when you talked about what happened to her that everybody got up and contributed. And so it's an emotional issue. Get away from the methodologies, necessarily the technologies. They're important, but it's not as important as the fact that we are human beings. And as human beings, we react to emotion, and we make decisions based upon those emotions. And some of those decisions are the ability to give. And ask yourself this question: how am I appealing to the hearts and minds of my potential donors? That's my 3 cents for today.
Thanks, Dennis. Hey, John, we'll give you the last word, and then we'll wrap up right about on time.
Yeah, that's pressure, the last word. I think,
Just thank Amanda and I for being with you today. That's all.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you very much. No, well, first thank all of the participants who hung in there, because you took the first step to wanting to learn, new things. Every day I want to read and learn new things about fundraising, because every day is a new day to learn. But I would say, take one step toward something you heard today. That would be my thing. Anything, we told you what the big first steps are. But even just doing one thing, a conversation with a donor, that nothing beats going out and asking. I remember this one guy ran a homeless shelter in Patterson, New Jersey, right? Right here in the heart of New Jersey. And he had a very low budget, and the boiler went out, and he knew that there wasn't going to be any heat. And he went down to Home Depot, and he walked in and he said, "Hi, I run this homeless depot I'm a homeless place out of a church." He gave him his card. He said, "Here's my 401k, not my 401k, here's my 501c3, I'm legit." He said, "It would be a miracle." This is what he said: "It would be a miracle if you could donate a hot water heater, because I have a guy that's a plumber that said he would install it for free." And the guy looked at him and he said, "It's your lucky day." He said, "I'm sure that I have one in the back that's out of the box working fine, and I'd be glad to give it to you." He says, "By the way, if you came in asking for $100, I got 50 pieces of paperwork that have to go all the way back to headquarters to give you $100, but I can give you that. Pull your truck around the back." And he had it. You don't ask, you don't get. And so let people say no. We get inside our heads all day long with, "Well, I'm going to ask Dennis." "Well, no, Dennis has 4 kids in college, and he just, he'd be no good." "Oh, well, Amanda, well, she just bought a house at the beach, and I'm sure she's spending money on that, so she wouldn't want to give us any money." "Oh, well, Bill, he just donated to something else, and so he's not." We talk ourselves right out of it. I'd rather hear the no, because I don't take it personally, and you shouldn't either. So find out one thing, take one step at a time, and go for it, and stick with the nonprofit committee, because there's, every day there's resources that they can provide for you, and they have these panels and others that are even better than the one today, that can impart information on all of us to learn.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Dennis, Amanda. That's actually great advice. I mean, learning to not be afraid of the no is something that's been really helpful for me over the years. So that's a great way to finish. I do thank you guys for coming on, Amanda. We're always happy to see you. Dennis and John have been good friends of the committee over the years. And thank you to the Meadowlands Chamber once again for, hosting this committee and these panels. And thank you guys for taking an hour and a half out of your time this morning. And finally, Denise, thank you for moderating and filtering everyone's questions through to the panel this morning. If there's nothing else, you guys have a great rest of the week.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.